Hey, if you clicked on this video, there's a pretty good chance that you might be a little scared right now. Your friends just asked you to DM for them. You're the only one who's maybe had a little bit of experience in D&D, or you were the only one that really seemed interested in DMing. And you might be a little afraid right now because DMing takes all of the things that so many of us are really afraid of. Public speaking, improvising, and also probably most importantly, creating something and then showing it to our friends and hoping that they're interested. There's nothing more painful than when you spend a whole bunch of time and effort making something, and when you go to show it to people, they don't seem interested, especially people we care about. So today, in this video and in the subsequent 3 after it, so a 4-part series, I'm going to be going through the steps I take when I start a campaign, along with a lot of advice that I wish I knew when I started DMing some 10, 15 years ago, almost. Now, the structure of this is different than probably a lot of other videos that you've seen on this topic if you've been watching a whole bunch of them, because we're gonna do stuff together. Before I started DMing, I was an educator. I taught in schools, and one of the things that I found worked best to help people learn was doing it with them. So periodically throughout the video, instead of just telling you to do something, I'm going to say, let's do this together. And we're gonna do that. Part 1, drawing inspiration. Before we can dive in, we need to do one very important thing. We need to get our document ready. So you can use any note-taking document you want, anything you want, as long as you're writing it down, okay? All right. So here we are, our prep document. So first thing we want to do is we want to talk about inspirations, okay? So now these inspirations aren't just pieces of fantasy that inspire us, but things in general that inspire us. One example, just because I know that might not be good enough direction. For me, I feel inspired when I look out the window on a warm summer's day and I can see like flowers and trees just sort of blowing in the breeze, just that light rustle of leaves. I don't know, it just does something for me where I feel inspired. I can feel something evocative when I see that. So that's what we're going for. I want you to write down a couple of things that inspire you, but also some media, video games. These will serve as a basis for us whenever we can't come up with an idea. We'll come back to what inspired us. So let's go ahead and work on that. I'm going to play some music. You write down some stuff. I'm going to write down some stuff. I'm going to be on like double speed, so that way I don't take up a whole bunch of time. But if you need more music, it'll be linked down in the description. Go ahead and listen to that and just write, okay? The starting is always hardest. Okay, so these are the things that I have as my inspiration. These are things that whenever I'm starved for ideas or I can't think of where to go next, I'm gonna look to these pieces of media and these inspirations, and I'm gonna say, okay, if in Wheel of Time this happened, maybe given the knowledge I have of that book series, what could happen next? Using it as sort of like a catalyst or some ingredients that you can add into your campaign to spice things up. Okay, that's the easy part. With our inspirations out of the way, we can move on. But first, there's a really important note that I want to make here right at the beginning. Start small, stay flexible. This is very important to keep in mind as we're going through this. The creative process isn't linear. Because here's the thing, you doing this, you're doing something creative. You are writing, you're thinking about story, you're thinking about interesting encounters, you are thinking about things that creative people do. Matthew Colville has a great video about leading a creative life, because that's what you do as a dungeon master. And I thoroughly recommend you go and check it out after this video. Matt Colville's great, but sometimes his videos are a little bit more in depth than what they need to be, especially when you're first starting out. So specifically what I mean right now is we're going to talk about location, NPCs, and hooks. You don't need to do these in the same order that I'm doing if it doesn't make sense for your brain. If you want to start with hooks and then go to NPCs and then go to location, you can do that. Or if you want to do it in the order I'm doing, which is locations, NPCs, and then hooks, you can do that too. Any order you want is fine, as long as you're getting the ideas on the paper. That's all that matters, right? Getting it out there, because we can always go back and revise. In the creative process, especially in this stage, there's no such thing as a bad idea or a mistake. What matters is that you get it on the page. You can always come back and change it later. Okay? Okay, now here's the thing. That's only one half of it. Let's move back to the big screen so we can get a little more intimate. Better. The other thing you need to keep in mind in the creative process when you are doing this world building is we want to start small, and that's what we're going to be doing today. You can, as a new DM, start big in the capital city with hundreds of locations and hundreds of NPCs. But the thing is, you don't know what your players want to do yet. You as a DM don't know what it's like to manage that large scale of a city and of a conflict, of a narrative. So what we want to do is we want to start small, okay? Itty bitty, okay? We want to start tiny because it's so easy for us to grow, to get comfortable in our own skin, and then we can start to grow. I mean, it could just be 4 or 5 sessions, and you're like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm ready. Let's go to the capital. Let's go to the Astral Sea. Let's go to the freaking City of Brass. I don't care. I'm ready. I'm a master dungeon master already. If that's the confidence you're rolling up with by session 5, that's fantastic. I'm happy for you. You've graduated from the 100s level class. It's time to go do something else, you know? But for right now, if we're just starting out, we want to start small, because adding restrictions to ourselves helps make the creative process easier. And it adds a funnel, okay? It allows us to funnel these huge, big ideas into these really concise, really tight little nuggets that are just gonna be little delicious snacks for our players. They're gonna be eating up our nuggets all day, all right? Our story, our crafting, so it's like, that aside, I don't know what that was. We're now gonna move on to the next part, where we're actually gonna do some creating. Location, creation. All right, we are back to our document here. I've changed the names of the other 3 categories for what we're going to be talking about. So now what we're going to do is we're going to dive into locations, and the location we're going to make. In this beginning brainstorming stage, what we're going to do together is we're going to come up with 3 different towns, okay? 3 different small villages of different varieties. Don't nail yourself down to the one generic, European medieval fantasy village. Try and come up with some different ideas for things that are a little weird, a little different, a little out there. Taking from your inspirations, what are some strange things that you've seen in those games, those movies, those TV shows, those books, and what did you like about them when they were different? What made them notable? And then from there, we can say, okay, but how would I do that? We're going to use those inspirations as training wheels, sort of, okay? So we're going to make 3 different locations. Just a sentence or 2 about each, generally describing what it's like and where it is. We don't need to know anything about the world. We can just say something and it's true. That's the beauty of being a DM when you start small. Because you can say, yeah, the city of Edinburgh is in the kingdom of Alferia, and they are the mortal enemies of the Clorbensteins, like that. That's all nonsense, what I just said. But if you say it in the game as the DM, It's fact. It is undeniable truth. Because you started small, you can make things up as you go. It gives you freedom. It gives you the ability to change. And that's something that's very important as a DM. So we're going to come up with 3 locations of different varieties, and we're going to see which one we like most after we get done. Okay? All right. There we go. I've come up with my 3. So first on the list, I have Oaneru. So Oaneru is a desert town built near an undrying oasis. There's a large obsidian obelisk that emerges from the center of the oasis. There's lots of sandstone buildings and traders' huts. The town has a lot of influence from outsiders, considering how many people stop here to trade. I like that one a lot. I think that one's really cool. There's some implied hooks already with the mysterious obelisk, the fact that the oasis never dries, regardless of how many people drink from the water. Next, I have Crest Peak. This is a small mountain village that is predominantly a mining town. Most people who live here never leave, and they yearn for the mines to stay safe from the treacherous wildlife that exists in the mountains and the surrounding areas. Somehow the mines are safe. So most of the town buildings are built within the mountain, not outside. And then finally, New Talaran. This is a colonist city on an unexplored continent. Sailing over on 50 ships they had to deconstruct for housing and city walls. The soil is hard, the rivers run dry, and the land seems to reject them. There are no natives to be seen. They rely on fishing and purifying salt water. And the city is currently a democracy where all people vote on laws, but it's quickly turning dire. Many would claim power for themselves. Ooh. So we have 3 here. 3 that I really like, and I hope that the 3 that you made you really like as well, but there's got to be one clear winner, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to pick one to continue out the rest of the process with. And if we continue out the process and we don't like what we come up with, we can always come back and do more brainstorming. But a very important note here is just because you pick one of your 3 doesn't mean the other 2 don't exist anymore. You're the DM. It's your homebrew world. Why not? Just leave them there. There are other cities that exist in the world, and maybe your players will go to them one day, or maybe in the next campaign. Save all your ideas so you can come back to them later. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move forward with New Talrin. The other 2 I really like, and I'd really love to expand on them both more, but I think New Talrin has the most interesting implications for a new adventure. So let's go ahead and move on now to NPCs. The basics of crafting NPCs. With NPCs, in case you don't know, NPC stands for non-player character. These are the characters you as the Dungeon Master play. These are the characters that the players are going to be interacting with every single session, so you need to have a good idea of who's in this town, what they're doing, and what they want. Because, and we'll talk about this in the next video about creating interesting NPCs and engaging villains, when it comes to role-playing them properly, we want to make sure that they have a desire and that we know what that desire is, why they would go into a conversation. So that's all we're going to do is we're going to come up with 3 NPCs for New Talrin, or 4, whichever one you picked. And for those 3 NPCs, we just want to come up with a name, a very short description, and what they want. Now, for their name, you can make something up. You can go to fantasynamegenerator.com. You can use ChatGPT, whichever you want, whichever you like the most. I myself am going to be using fantasynamegenerator.com. Never disappointed me so far. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's make some NPCs, okay? All right. And there we go. My 3 NPCs. So we have Charlin Chalk. He's an old water genasi man, grizzled appearance, many scars, burns all over his body. He's master builder of the town and wants nothing more than to leave. Highly superstitious and has been collecting parts secretly to build a small boat and sail home. The thing is, the voyage is doomed, you know? I mean, in my head, the city of New Talrin is months away. Probably some 200-300 day journey by boat as quick as it can go with the wind in your sails, and there's no way that he's going to be able to do that in a little dinghy. But he'd rather die at sea than be stranded here in this place that he feels is, you know, the powers that be, they corrupt this place, you know, like he's really not about it. Okay, then we go to Lyra Arlen. She's a high elf woman, runs the only tavern in town. Her age shows the longer she stays here, the older she appears. While she's kind, she does grow more hag-like as the days go on. She's only kind to certain individuals on certain days, and she used to be an adventurer before taking an unfortunate wound during battle. And the thing is, she desires to rule the town, but those desires grow every day. Where when she first got here, that wasn't her plan, but day in, day out, that's what she wants more and more and more and more. And then finally, we have Eris Talman, human woman, captain of the guard, raven-haired, and a mean look in her eye. She commands respect, but also wishes to keep things fair in the city. She used to wear full plate armor day in and day out, but this land is simply too hot for it, so most of the time she'll just wear a blackened steel breastplate and the tabard of her house colors from back home, black and red. She knows there are those that would take control of the city, but she wishes to maintain democracy by any means necessary. Okay, we have our 3 NPCs here. One of the things I was trying to achieve with these is I wanted 3 different types of people. I wanted each one of them to have jobs, things that they were responsible for doing in the city itself, and like I said at the beginning, things they wanted. And I wanted to make sure those things were in conflict with one another. It creates some interesting ideas to inject into the campaign for the players to decide what they want to do. I also wanted to add a little bit of a red herring with Eris Talman, where the players, when they first see her, knowing that when you set up the campaign that people want to take over the town, they want to take the village and put it under a tyrannical fist, the first person they're going to look to blame is the captain of the guard. She's mean. There's no way she's a good guy, right? But in this particular instance, she might not be a good guy. She wants to keep democracy, but by any means necessary. How many people need to be drawn and quartered until they learn that democracy is the best way to do things? She believes in democracy, just not the right to a fair trial. Those are our NPCs. And here's the reason why I like doing location and NPCs first, because there's already so much going on here. There's so many connections. There's so much meat already. So when we go to move on to make our hooks, buddy boy, you best believe it's about to be easy as pie. Oof-wee. So let's go ahead and dive in to our final part, hooking the story. Here's the thing, all right? Your hook should not be a mandatory step for the players to be able to progress. These hooks are out there to try and reel the players in, okay? They're not there to force the players to do something. You should never force your players to do something. Encourage them, right, with hooks and rewards, right? At the end of the day, one of the most important parts about D&D and any tabletop RPG is agency. Do the players feel like they're free to do generally whatever they want? Sure, they might be guided to go do one thing in particular, but they can still go do another thing. These hooks are there to tempt them, to spark interest in them. But here's the thing, we're not prepping an entire campaign here. We're prepping the first few sentences of the first few hooks to get them interested in whatever story is going to unfold here. If you're interested in seeing a full video about laying out all of the campaign, that'll be linked right up, actually like right here by me. In that video, I go very in depth about what I call the act structure, which helps me prep storylines and arcs in my campaigns. But watch that after this series and especially after this video. But with that, let's go ahead and make 3 hooks. I've got my hooks done, and I really like them because I like how interconnected they can be and how they lead to bigger and better things that you can grow into as a DM. So first things first, the first hook we have is Eris Talman is looking for new recruits to be paid to seek out plotters and planners. For each person the party turns in, they would be paid 100 gold, and along their way, they would find some strange occult items and markings in the houses of people that are actually guilty. So, you could have some McCarthyism here, and you could have your players claiming people are, plotters and planners of this authoritarian plot, and not be, and they're just doing it for the gold if your players are fucking evil as shit, I guess. Or greedy, whatever. But you could have them start to find things during this process related to what's the bigger plot, which is why the land is the way that it is. But these are just hooks to get them started. Next up, we have if the party decides to leave the city where, none of the hooks intrigue them, none of the plots are intriguing them, they just decide to leave. Well, they could find a strange group of simian creatures, so monkey-like creatures, with fish-like faces and tiefling horns. They immediately scatter into the trees when the party comes upon them. Following them through maybe some successful survival checks, tracking them, will lead the players to an abandoned city that was built into the jungle long ago, totally overgrown, almost entirely consumed by nature. What is the city? Who lives here? I don't know right now, but it's interesting, right? Well, let's explore. Let's try and get to the bottom of this. Let's try and figure out what's going on. What the hell were those creatures? I don't know. That's the thing. Please, please, please do not forget that. You do not need to know all the answers, okay? All you need to know is the beginning and maybe an idea of where it's going to go. But you don't need to know the ending right now. All you need to know is that there's some weird shit going on here and you want the players to engage with it. If they choose to, then it's time to start prepping and planning for what that could be and what that mystery could lead to. But in the beginning, as a DM, you don't need to have everything figured out. Your responsibility as the DM is to be at the table, to help them make their characters to the best of your ability, and then to try and throw something in front of them that's going to engage them. After that first session or two, then you can start thinking about the end game. But for right now, we just want to throw stuff. Throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks. That's what we're trying to do, okay? All right. Last hook I got here, Mr. Chalk, that's definitely what he's called, right? Mr. Chalk. He's a Mr. Chalk, he's something else. He's going to try and subtly recruit the players to help him escape. Hey, lads. You wouldn't happen to know where I could find a bit of cloth, could ya? What do you need cloth for, Mr. Chalk? He's a bad liar, but the party, players love goofy NPCs. And to help somebody out, they probably will be obliged to. The thing is, his voyage probably isn't going to be successful, which is very sad. So they might convince him to stay. They might help him out there, or they'll help him get all the materials he needs to help him sail away. But the thing is, if they do help, he's going to give them all of his gold and all of his valuables. One of which is a good luck charm he always carries on him. And most importantly, it's something that has prevented nightmares, which is something that everybody in this town, including the players, has been experiencing for the past few months. And most interestingly, he refuses to elaborate what it is and where he found it. It creates a sense of mystery. And I think you can already see where I'm going. I started in one place, one very broad, big idea, and as I started to come up with more stuff, it started to trim down and down and down until it was to this very clear and concise idea that I'm finally arriving at now, which I think some of the big themes of this campaign are going to be mystery, occult, maybe some H.P. Lovecraft Cthulhu type stuff also. These great old ones that used to live in this land. What did they do? Who are they? Where are they now? I don't know. But doing it in this way, I have enough information to start, and I'm excited to keep going. A big mistake a lot of DMs make, especially when they start, is they go too hard, too fast. They make too much too soon, and so much of it doesn't get used, they get burnt out. It's a real feeling. Burnout is super easy to do as a DM, and especially in the beginning. So in the beginning, start small, make what you need to, and grow from there. That's it for this one, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. The next one will be coming out week after week after week. 4 parts in total. Next week, we're going to talk about creating NPCs and villains in the campaign. We'll probably just stick with Talrin here. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.